to green spaces, I have been supporting something called Green Social Prescribing, which sounds very medical and technical, but essentially Green Social Prescribing is just anything that links people to nature-based activities to improve their health and well-being. But there's quite a big agenda around this at the moment, because rather than just viewing nature as something that's there's this understanding that nature can provide a service for us, and when you're talking to healthcare professionals and funders, if you call it green social prescribing, and it's this idea that somebody might go to their GP for maybe a mental health problem, or maybe they might go for a heart problem, that as well as a medical intervention, they could be linked to something within their community that will also help their health and well-being. And there are lots of different pathways that people can be linked to these activities, but yeah, there's quite formal links like GP link workers, or there's other types of referral organisations, or essentially you can sort of self-refer yourself to nature to get the benefits of health and well-being. And I'm pretty sure I don't need to really tell everybody on this call about the kind of evidence behind the benefits of health and well-being, but yeah, all of the research shows that nature is really important for our physical health and well-being. People who visit nature regularly feel their lives to be more worthwhile. All the research is there, so it's just about formalising and sort of describing it as green social prescribing, and trying to connect the people who might be able to refer and prescribe nature, and making sure those pathways are in place. So green social prescribing can be any kind of activity, so it can be the most obvious ones, which is like therapeutic horticulture, but it can also just be going for a walk in nature. It can be, I've just started doing open swimming at Selwater Park Lake, which counts as it. So anything where nature is benefiting your health and well-being. And yes, part of this project that I'm working on is to develop and support green social prescribing across Trafford. So there is a whole system of link workers in Trafford, or wellbeing practitioners, who, when somebody accesses a GP or a service, they can be prescribed to a link worker, and then a link worker can help connect them to an activity that might improve their health and well-being. And so I've been set with the task of trying to support that in Trafford. And so far, this is what I've been doing, sort of support in three different kinds of ways. So I support individuals, so the kind of people that might benefit the most from nature are the people that maybe aren't accessing it already, and that might be for a whole variety of different reasons, but quite often it might be to do with their mental health and their confidence. So by providing one-on-one support for somebody that might benefit from accessing a nature-based activity, you could do things like drive them to the activity, just go with them the first time to the activity, just describing the activity so that they understand what it is, because it can be quite daunting to go to a new place or go to a new nature activity. So I've been supporting sort of individuals. Then the project's been working to build referral pathways, so that's building the list of different organisations and link workers that can refer and prescribe nature-based activities. So you've got your traditional GP link workers, which is the ones I was just talking about, but then there are all sorts of other kind of community referral pathways. So one that we've been working with in Trafford is a bed every night, which is like a homelessness provision. So while people are using a bed every night, they've not really got much to do during the day, and actually getting them out to an activity in the community where nature can support their health and well-being is really beneficial. So we've been working with loads of different referral pathways like that. And then the third section, which maybe this is most relevant for this call, is supporting sort of community and green groups to grow and flourish, so that you've got things for people to be prescribed into, or opportunities for people where nature can benefit their health and well-being. And yeah, none of this is new. Like, everybody knows that linking people to these kind of activities will help, but it's just sort of formalising it and medicalising it, so that we've got the backing of funders and health professionals. Why has my slides decided to stop working? There we go. So as part of the project, I've made this lovely interactive map, which is find a nature-based activity in Trafford. There's not actually anything on the map for Carrington Moss at the moment because there's not one set activity. So that might be something that we could talk about. Or the next stage of the map, I think, as well, as these are all activities that have a time and a place and are the same sort of every week. But I think there's probably something to be said for having a map of just green spaces in Trafford that's easy for people to find, because you can sort of prescribe somebody to go for a walk or identify areas of natural beauty that could benefit people's health and well-being. So there's this interactive map, which since the start of the project's had 800 people look at, and then there's also a directory that goes to GP surgeries, goes to link workers, goes to referral organisations, that kind of identifies all the different opportunities for people to get involved and immersed in nature in Trafford. As part of it as well, I kind of did a sort of scoping of Trafford and felt like there's a lot of friends of groups, and there's a lot of walking for health groups, which is great, but there's not that much of a varied offer. So we've got some sort of demonstration projects around open water swimming and fishing, to see if we can sort of diversify the ways in which nature can help people's health and well-being. It's not without its challenges. So there are quite a lot of challenges to green social prescribing. Number one challenge is transport, and this is something that we've been talking about a cycle bus for, but quite often people need to be able to access an opportunity to connect with nature on their doorstep. They don't want to be travelling all the way across Trafford to Sale Water Park to do volunteering. They want to access something that's close by, so it doesn't seem as daunting, it isn't expensive, they might not have access to a car. The people who would benefit the most and who aren't accessing nature at the moment are the people that will struggle with transport. They're trying to think of creative solutions to this and making sure that everybody's got good quality green space and green activities on their doorstep. The other sort of challenges that at the moment, priorities for people, they might actually be in a sort of state of crisis. A lot of the link workers are supporting people with the cost of living crisis, supporting them to access money support services and food support services, rather than people being ready to access a green activity. And that's just, I think different people are on a journey, and the link workers might suggest, oh, go to this green activity, but it just depends where people are at with that journey. So you can refer somebody and they might not end up taking it up, but if you can provide that green space service a bit earlier on, before people get to crisis point with their mental health or their physical health, then it's likely to be more successful. And then there's challenges for green groups. To be able to provide sort of continuous green opportunities in your local area, you need sustainability of the groups and funding for that. There's different priorities of groups. So some groups really care, for example, about conservation of species or sort of the biodiversity side of being a green group, and then maybe are not as trained up in sort of how to welcome somebody who might need a bit of extra support accessing that activity. Accessibility of activity, so how do we get everybody to be able to access that green space and that activity? Is it accessible for people with mobility problems? Things like that. And often I ask people what support I can offer them, and they just don't know. They've just not really thought about it, and that can be a challenge for me. And then across Trafford, it's just a case of trying to think, how can we diversify the offer and make sure that we've got support for people that's accessible and potentially specialist in terms of mental health green space provision. So then this section is how can a green group or just a group get involved in green social prescribing? It doesn't need to be anything fancy. If you're providing a nature-based activity or a nature venue, you just need to think, how can that support people's health and well-being? And then you can work with me and different referral partners to provide that referral pathway into that nature-based activity. And this is some of the things that when you, if you wanted to get involved in green social prescribing, that my project kind of helps. So we bring together lots of different community groups so they can meet each other and share ideas, support with referral pathways, training. So first aid training, we've put on first aid training, we've put on mental health awareness training, all sorts of different training depending on what the needs of the group are. Funding bid support, accessibility support, so building wheelchair accessible ramps on allotments and things like that. We have a community tool store at Selwater Park, and then promotion of activities. I feel like I've sped through that. We're at the end. Very quick.
That's super, thank you. Does anybody have any immediate questions? Yes, Brian, I think you wanted to come in, so take yourself off mute, Brian, and then you can raise your question.
I'll stop sharing so everybody can see.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much indeed, Ruth. It's very interesting. You know, and I hope you're successful in encouraging groups to support. But I'm really worried that, and I'll ask you the question, does Andy Burnham and the Labour leaders of Greater Manchester, who are intent clearly at destroying Carrington Moss, do they support green social prescribing?
I can't actually speak for them themselves, but yeah, in theory, so there's just been a project called GM Nature for Health, which was all about green social prescribing, and then there's the Green Spaces Fund, which is all about engaging communities and local green spaces. So in theory, yes. Yeah. But I can't speak for everyone.
I have to say, Brian, our experience is that these people speak with forked tongue. On the one hand, Andy Burnham's been photographed on a United Utilities peat moss in Lancashire, saying how important it is that we restore our peat mosses, and on the other, as you'll hear later on in the meeting, the you know, the destruction of peat mosses across Greater Manchester is one of the key features of Places for Everyone. So so yes, forked tongues spring to mind. Paul, did you want to come in? You had a question. You need to come off mute, Paul.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, thank you for that. It was very interesting talk. That's actually, Ruth. We've had an idea in Warburton, which we've pinched, or I've pinched from another community group, which is a community arboretum. And basically the idea is that we mark on a map all the TPO trees, that's the ones with tree preservation orders, ancient woodlands, any remarkable trees with a different history, flowering trees in people's gardens, old yew trees in the church, and so on. And obviously connect these together to make a walk, so that in spring people will be able to see the blossom of whatever the trees are in the area. It's early days yet, and we would like to find some funding for it as a parish council, but you know, I think it'd be quite a useful thing to do. The model we were following,
it's a great idea.
It's a village in Gloucester called Stonehouse, and they've set up the initial one, and the chap who set it up is a chap called John Parker, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Arboricultural Association, and it seems to be going from success to success. It's a really good idea. It came up at a conference I attended, and it's quite interesting because they were saying there how many native trees are dying with pests and diseases. So, for instance, in the next few years, we'll expect 150 million ash trees to die with ash dieback. So monitoring that would be a great thing to do as part of the same exercise, and so on and so on. So I think it dovetails in very nicely with what you're proposing,
Yeah, and that kind of digital opportunity for people to connect and map. And Friends of Victoria Park actually are thinking of doing it with orchard trees, and people who'd be willing for other people to come and get apples from their trees, and sort of mapping that in Stretford. So really interesting.
And is there any funding that you can point us at, or?
They're sort of maybe one about. It depends if you're going for the tree line, or if you go orchards, you can go sort of food waste recycling money. If you're going digital mapping, let me have a think and get back to you. If I ask Marge afterwards, I'll be able to send you some sort of links of different opportunities.
Yeah, that's super. Yeah.
We are actually tied in with the local orchard group. There's a chap who does got an apple press at Dunham, and he collects a lot of our local apples. So
so I wonder if that could be a way to sort of reduce food waste, kind of that kind of angle for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, there is also an ancient orchard, I think, somewhere on Carrington Moss, which is probably either very hidden or possibly even destroyed now. But there was an ancient orchard on Carrington Moss, wasn't there?
Right. Well, that'd be useful to find out.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, I'm not sure if you know where this is. I have an idea that Janet does. It's on maybe one of the magic maps or something. I have got a map with it on somewhere. But Jeff, are you aware of it, the ancient orchard?
No, I'm not actually. I've got the tree inventory open in front of me, but that really just tells me the big trees around with the ancient trees, which the Woodland Trust have listed.
Right.
I'm not aware of any orchard.
Right. I'll find it. I'll try and find a link to that, Paul, because I've an idea. I've got a map somewhere with that on.
That's Screaming Heritage Lottery Fund bid then, if you've got the heritage.
Well, you never know. You find all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I can remember finding some pear trees, and this was not in this parish, but nearby, and apparently the fruit were totally inedible. But during the First World War, they were collected for dyeing uniforms, khaki. So there's a historic connection there, which is fantastic.
Right, very good, very good. Okay, so Sarah, I think you wanted to come in next, didn't you? You need to come off mute.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Thank you so much for introducing your organisation. It sounds really good for making connections between all the different community groups. And I know some. I couldn't see from your map, but I know someone who's involved. She's actually started a community interest, a CIC.
Is it Alinda?
Alinda, that's right. Okay,
Alice,
so you're
Alinda, yeah.
That. And also another one that I couldn't see anything in Wythenshawe, but I know they've got a project.
Blossom
with the community. Blossom.
Yeah, I unfortunately my funding's only for Trafford, but I do know Blossom because it's really good. But yeah, Alinda's
it's not in Trafford, of course. Yeah.
Alinda's doing different food growing, community food growing in several different locations in Trafford. It's a really great project, and we've been trying to set them up to take Green Social Prescribing referrals, so getting them all sorted for that. So yeah, brilliant.
Thank you. And if I know of any other thing which might be relevant, like for instance, I go balsam bashing with the Friends of Bowden Bolling, and they've been set up for years, but there isn't one for Hale. So I'm thinking of setting one up for Hale. Would that be something that might be?
Yeah, and the map as well. Like, I don't because my funding comes through Green Social Prescribing, as I was saying, find an activity that improves your health and well-being. So it says health and well-being, but realistically, it's also an advertisement for where can you volunteer in a green space. So yeah, any kind of opportunity to engage with a local green space, I want on that map.
Fantastic. Thank you.
The Trafford Wildlife Group, which Jeff is a member of, they do quite a lot with volunteers in various. So are you already connected to Trafford Wildlife?
Yes, so we've got Trafford Wildlife on the map, but what I would say that we struggle in terms of Green Social Prescribing to get people to join Trafford Wildlife, just because sort of it's like a full, it's the same reason that they don't necessarily join TCV's activities. It's like a full conservation day. So rather than like a Linda where it's just a morning, you just go, it's quite, it's not hardcore.
Well, no,
I don't know if I want to call it hardcore, Jeff. But
maybe a misconception, Jeff, because when I've been, you can always just go for a couple of hours and then, you know, you finish when you want to, and, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's about me sort of having those conversations with the link workers and the referral organisations to make sure they see it that way. Yeah.
Jeff, I don't know if you want to come in there.
Yeah. I think the thing is, people have to turn up at the beginning. They can stay as long as they like. If they don't want to stay till lunchtime or 12 o'clock, whatever, that's fine. But if they don't turn up at the beginning, then they don't actually know where we are.
So yeah, and you've got to be on the Facebook group to kind of find out. But yeah, I think because where Trafford Wildlife is, well, it's quite close to like Blue Sky Centre. So Claire, who put us in touch, Marge, as kind of, she kind of steals everybody. Not steals them, that's the wrong word. But she puts them on forest bathing, and she puts them on Coppice Library Garden, because she has first sort of referral pathway. But yeah, hopefully, Jeff, I'll get you somebody someday.
Okay. Well, we've still, Brian and Paul, you've still got your hands up. Have you got other questions, or do you want to put your hands down? Rob Duncan, you've just put your hand up. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, hi there, Ruth.
Hiya.
Hello there. Thanks ever so much for that informative. I'm sorry I was a few minutes late. I was just tuning the laptop up after work. So yeah, massively informative. I'm actually a member of the Firs Road Weathercock Farm Park group, which is just up the road from Firs Road Junior School. I don't know whether you know that area, just off Harbour Road. And I'm wondering if you work with schools in relation to any nature treks or anything like that, and if we could team them up, possibly.
Yeah, so at the moment, the funding bid that project that I work on 2 days a week, we've not massively got into young people's social prescribing, but I've got another year, and it's something that I'm quite interested in, because I think young people's mental health and connecting them with green space, when it, like, teaching them, if you connect with green space, if you use green space, it can improve your health and well-being from a young age, is so important. And then they've got that skill in their well-being toolkit, and that kind of connection with local green space. So that is definitely something we want to get involved in. And the other thing that I would say on that is, as part of this Firs Wood consultation and some of the funding that we're trying to bring into Firs Wood, that would definitely be working with school groups and trying to engage everybody in sort of connecting and caring for Firs Wood.
Okay.
And definitely link up
just
about
so
that
you
as well.
just so you know, Ruth, I do take school groups out for walks on the moss, and they do have within their curriculum, even from quite a young age, so from All Saints Infant and Junior School, they have got land use, for example, on the curriculum. And obviously it's a different walk depending on the age of the children, but you know, it doesn't have to be, a walk doesn't have to be focused on mental health and well-being to be good for their mental health and well-being, is just the point I wanted to make. Rob, did you have another point you wanted to make before I hand over to Paul? Now, if you put your hand down then, and Paul, do you want to come back in again?
Yeah, just a quick point, Ruth. Have you had any dealings with eco schools?
Yes, a little bit, but not too much on this project. But I'm part of the Manchester Eco School Network, but I've not actually been for a little while to one of their things, but I don't know too much about which Trafford schools are part of that network.
I think Wellacre in Flixton, they've got an eco site, definitely. So yeah.
No,
Lorraine, who's normally here, she's one of our committee members, is on holiday this week, but she could probably tell you a little bit about what they're doing there at Wellacre, Ruth. So any other points from anybody before? I just had a couple of points, but let me just see if anybody else wants to come in first. No, I just wanted to pick up on the cycling bus, Ruth, because that's something that's very close to my heart. And as I think I mentioned to you, we've got schools that are interested and businesses that are interested in the cycling bus. And if people don't know what this is, it's a bus that children cycle to school on. It has got an electric engine so that if they get tired, they can still carry on going. There's no excuse not to go to school. But, you know, it means that maybe 12 or so children travel to school together, which I think is really great fun for young children. And it means also that they're getting used to going on a cycle, because you actually pedal. You know, pedal your way around. There are options for the cycling buses to be available for older people as well. So, you know, some of our elderly might like to use them, particularly where there are a few other buses and they don't have the opportunity of getting out much. We did try and look at funding for this about 3 or 4 years ago, but we were told that there was no funding anywhere in Greater Manchester or nationally for a cycling bus. The cost is around about 20,000, I think, for each bus. And of course, you would need a trained driver as well. So anyway, back over to you, Ruth, on that.
I just a quick update on that is that place down south that they've got, they can loan us a cycle bus to test it. He got back to me, but somebody has to take a cycling bus test first. We've got to get insurance and a few other things, but I'll talk to you about that.
So we'll talk about that separately. But I do think, because I mean, a lot of schools, for example, have minibuses and they have somebody trained to drive the minibuses, so there may be somebody there. But I think it's a great job for perhaps an older volunteer who could drive the cycling buses. We had people that wanted to come around Carrington Moss but not walk because they're not very mobile. And I know that I've taken some people down Isherwood Road, which is quite easy for people with mobility aids, so because it's got the right sort of surface. But a lot of the public rights of way are a little bit difficult for somebody on a mobility that's mobility challenged to navigate. You know, some parts of the routes are a little bit narrow, some are a little bit potholed. So, and when it's wet, some are very muddy. So, you know, but Isherwood Road is a great, we can do a route down Isherwood Road that is a great way of introducing people who are perhaps mobility challenged to the Moss as well. So, okay. And these are safe, pleasant and healthy routes, by the way. These routes, people walk, cycle and horse ride, and there's no traffic, so they're totally safe. There's no air pollution, you know, so they're totally healthy. And you're right in the middle of nature. You're either in woodland or you can hear bird song. When I'm taking the kids on the walks, we stand near the road and we listen to what we can hear. And of course, all you can hear is HGVs. You can hardly hear your voices above the sound of the traffic, particularly at where Mersey Farm is, at that junction there at the end of the Carrington Spur. And then we listen again when we're in the heart of the Moss, and you can not hear anything other than bird song. So, you know, it is a very pleasant journey when you're having a little walk around or a cycle around. So, and yes, the forest bathing activities, is that with Heather Henry? Do you know? Yeah. So, I mean, we obviously Carrington Moss is very suitable for that sort of activity. So, yeah. But we did also talk about bat walks. Does your tool cupboard include bat equipment, bat monitoring equipment?
We've got two bat detectors. We've got 2 bat detectors ready to go, and we've got a load of bat nature ID. You know,
oh yes, the ID sheets.
The sheets.
Yeah.
I can't remember where they're from, like the NA Field Studies Council. Yeah.
Because we have wanted to run a bat walk for a few years now, and because we do have bats that if you're walking around, particularly in the wooded areas at twilight, you know, you do see them fluttering around. So it would be great to do a bat walk. Yeah.
And I think that kind of like walking as well late at night builds people's confidence around walking at different times of the day as well in new spaces. I think that'd be really great for people.
Yeah. No, and I should say I've been on Carrington Moss at 6 o'clock in the morning and at 11 o'clock at night, and I've enjoyed all of my walks on Carrington Moss. You know, I don't feel vulnerable or what have you. So it is as I say, a safe, pleasant and healthy place to walk. So okay. Oh, got somebody else just joining. Okay, anybody got any other questions for Ruth? Ruth, is there any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
No, I'd just like to say thanks for listening. And I think it's like I said, it's nothing new to everybody on this call. We all know that green spaces can improve people's health and well-being. It's just about us sort of formalising that and not underselling nature, and just making sure that if we are doing activities that you get in touch with me or get in touch with different referral organisations, so that we can widen access and make sure everybody in the community is involved in those green spaces and activities.
Super. Now, Thanks very much. Jeff's put a couple of points in the chat about the orchards, so thank you, Jeff, for that. I'm going to stop the recording now, but for those who joined us partway through, if you want to listen to it, I will put it on our YouTube channel. Okay, let's just stop that recording.